Okay guys, so we're back here for part 2. So now we're going to actually get into the actual factoring of it. So we're not just going to be taking out a GCF, but we're going to go ahead, take an entire polynomial expression, find the GCF, and actually factor it out, actually take it out of the expression. So there's 4 steps that we're going to follow. So the first step is you determine the GCF for all terms of the polynomial. So that's something that we have already been doing, right? That should not necessarily be any new piece of information. So when we get started with that, we're going to look at 10y squared and we're going to look at 5y. What's the largest term that goes into both of those? Well, 10 and 5, the largest term that goes in is 5. Y squared and y, the most amount of y's in there is just one of them. So 5y is our GCF. That's the largest term that goes into that. So then step 2 says you're going to write the GCF first and then put a set of parentheses. So I'm going to write what my GCF is, and then I'm going to put a set of parentheses next to it. Then I'm going to divide each of the terms by the GCF and write the result inside the parentheses. So what that means is I'm going to take 5y from up here and I'm going to divide 10y squared and 5y by that both times. So off to the side, and you won't normally eventually end up actually showing this step, but for right now I'm going to. So 10y squared divided by 5y. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Y squared divided by y. Remember your exponent rules, you subtract. So that would be 2y. Okay, so if you recall, we're going to keep our 5y with the parentheses. And now I'm going to write the result in the parentheses. So I'm going to have 2y. And then I'm also going to take 5y, my second term, and divide that by 5y. 5 divided by 5 is 1, y divided by y is 1. So that becomes minus 1. And the reason why it's minus is because there was a subtraction sign up here. Okay, so you just want to be aware of that. So the final step that you would take here is you're going to check. You're going to multiply your result from step 3 to see if you would get the original polynomial. So if I were to take 5y times 2y minus 1, and I were to simplify it like we would have done before, I would distribute the 5y to both pieces, and I would end up with 10y squared minus 5y. Since that gives me what I started with up here, I know that 5y times 2y minus 1 is my answer. That is the factored form of the expression that we were given. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We're working backwards to figure out what would have been outside that parenthesis that I would have distributed through to get that answer. We're doing the exact opposite of what we were really doing before. Okay, so we have some practice problems here. First thing you always want to do is locate your GCF, and I always end up writing it off to the side. That way I kind of know what it is. So 36 and 12, largest number that goes into there is 12, g to the 4th and g to the 3rd. The largest term would be g to the 3rd. So now I'm going to say 12g to the 3rd, and then I put my parentheses. And now I want to divide 36g to the 4th by 12g to the 3rd, and 12g to the 3rd divided by 12g to the 3rd. So when I do 36g to the 4th divided by 12g to the 3rd, 36 divided by 12 gives me 3. G to the 4th divided by g to the 3rd gives me just g to the 1st. And if you need to still see that written out, you can go ahead and still kind of write it out on the side for you to be able to actually go ahead and do the division that way. If you're starting to get more comfortable with it, then you obviously don't have to do that step. And then 12g to the 3rd divided by 12g to the 3rd, if I divide the same thing, then you know you're just going to get 1. And in this case, it's going to be minus 1. Remember, again, there's a subtraction sign. So that would actually end up being our answer. Now, the way we would check that is by distributing it back through. 12g to the 3rd times 3g would give me 36g to the 4th. 12g to the 3rd times negative 1 would be minus 12g to the 3rd. And that is exactly what we were given. So I know that I am correct. Okay, let's go ahead and let's look at number 2. So let's figure out what the GCF is. What is the greatest common factor that goes into all of these? So if you look at the three terms that you have, if you notice, they all have a number, so that's good. So 42, 14, and 7, the largest number that goes into all of those is 7, but they don't all have that same variable q, which means 7 is actually the only thing that I can take out of there. So 7 is my GCF. Since I don't have a q in this last term, I cannot go ahead and remove a q from anything. I can't make that a part of my GCF. Then to write our final answer, we would have 7 times 42 q to the 4th divided by 7. You're just going to do 42 divided by 7, which is 6. So 6 q to the 4th plus 14 q to the 3rd divided by 7. The only thing you can simplify is the 14 and the 7. So 2 q to the 3rd minus, because that's the sign that was there, 7 divided by 7 is just 1. Okay, so that would be our answer. And if you went to go check, you would just distribute the 7 back through. 7 times 6q to the 4th would be 42q to the 4th. 7 times 2q to the 3rd is 14q to the 3rd. And 7 times -1 is -7. So you know you did that one right. Let's go ahead and look at number 3. Okay, first thing I want to see what my GCF is. So 2, 4, and 12. The largest number that goes into all three of those would be 2. I have x to the 3rd, x squared, and x. X to the 3rd, x squared, and x. The largest amount of x's in all three of those is just 1. So all I can do is take out an x. So then I set my parentheses up. And I'm going to divide each of these terms in this polynomial by my monomial that I found to be my GCF. So again, if you have to write it off to the side, you can. 2x to the 3rd divided by 2x, the 2's cancel. X to the 3rd over x is just x squared. Minus, because that's the sign that's there. 4x squared divided by 2x. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X squared divided by x is x. 12x divided by 2x. 12 divided by 2 is 6. X divided by x is just 1. That just goes away, so you don't have to write anything there. So then that would be our final answer. The only thing left to do would be to check. 2x times x squared would give me 2x to the 3rd. 2x times -2x would give me -4x squared. And 2x times 6 would give me 12x. So I know I did that one correct. Number 4. First one to find my GCF. So I have -9, I have 9, and I have 9. You have two options here. I would say you can either take out a -9 or you can keep the negative, just so you guys have exposure to it. I'm actually going to take out a -9. So if I take a -9 out, let's see what that does. And then I have v to the 3rd, v squared, and v. What is the largest amount of v's there? I have 3, I have 2, and I have 1. Okay, the largest amount that is in all three of those terms is just the 1v. So that's all I can take out. Then I make my parentheses. Inside my parentheses, I'm now going to divide each of my terms in the polynomial by my GCF. -9 divided by -9 is just 1, so I don't actually need to write anything. V to the 3rd divided by v is v squared. Plus, let's see what happens here. 9v squared divided by -9v. 9 divided by -9 is actually going to be -1. V squared over v is going to give me v. Plus, because that's the sign that's there, 9v divided by -9v is just actually going to end up giving me -1. So you can still write it as a plus negative, but I think most of you now at this point would really see that this is the same as -9v times v squared minus v minus 1. And that's really the way you want to write it. You don't really want your leading term in the parentheses to be negative. So that's why we went ahead and we took out that -9 instead of just a positive 9. Okay, and then if you went ahead and distributed it back in, you would notice that you get the correct answer. Now let's look at number 5. So if we notice, let's see what they have in common for our GCF. They all have a number that we can look at, but they don't all have a variable. So I can't think about the A's when it comes to my GCF. I can only focus on the number. So I have 27, 63, and 63. What is the largest number that goes into all of those? 9 would be it, right? So 9 is the largest number that goes into all three of those terms. So if I take 9 and I divide it by 27, right? I'm setting up my parentheses, and then I'm dividing each of my terms by the GCF, I would have 3. Plus 63a divided by 9 would be 7a minus, because that's the sign that's there, 63a squared divided by 9 would be 7a squared. And that would be my answer. Okay, and if you ever feel like you haven't taken enough out or you haven't simplified or factored enough, just go back and look what's inside the parentheses and say to yourself, is there anything that goes into 3, 7a, and negative 7a squared? If the answer is no, you factored as much as you could. If the answer is yes, then that means you didn't factor enough and you might just have to do that process one more time, which is okay. Now let's look at number 6. Okay, this one has a lot going on, so let's take it step by step. So we have negative 36, negative 18, negative 24. What is the largest number that goes into all 3 of those? Okay, so looking at them, there's numbers that go into 2 of them, but not all 3. So the largest number that goes into all 3 is actually going to be 6, and I'm going to make it negative. Again, if I can take that negative out, it's normally a good idea to do that if you notice your first number is negative. So I'm going to take a negative 6 out, and then I'm going to see what else I can take out. So I have an a in all 3 of my terms. What's the largest amount of a's, though, that I have in all 3 of them? And the answer to that would be 2. So I have a squared. Then I can look at my b's, and I can say, what's the largest number? Because I do have a b in all 3 of my terms. What's the largest number of b's that I have in all 3 of those? I have 7 here, I have 2 in this one, and I have 1. The largest number that I have in all 3 is just 1. So that's the largest amount that I could take out. So now I want to make my parentheses. From here, I can start to do my division. I can divide each of the terms by what I've gotten from my GCF. Okay, so I'm going to have negative 36a squared b to the 7th divided by negative 6a squared b. This might be a good time if you kind of stopped writing it off to the side to go back to doing that, just until you feel a little more comfortable. If you already feel comfortable with figuring it out, you definitely don't have to do what I'm writing here off to the side. So negative 36 divided by negative 6 is positive 6. A squared divided by a squared, they'll go away. B to the 7th divided by b is going to be b to the 6th. And then I'm going to look at negative 18a to the 5th, b squared. So negative 18a to the 5th, b squared over negative 6a squared b. Negative 18 divided by negative 6 is going to give me positive 3. A to the 5th over a to the 2nd. When I divide those, I'll get a to the 3rd. Looks like I need to extend my parenthesis. B squared divided by b is going to give me b. Then the last one, negative 24a squared b divided by negative 6a squared b. Negative 24 divided by negative 6 is going to give me positive 4. A squared divided by a squared cancels out. B divided by b cancels out. So all I'm left with is 4 there. So that would be my final answer. Oh, change the color there. And again, you could go ahead and check by distributing that negative 6a squared b to all 3 of those terms to make sure that you would end up with what we started with. Okay, so that was our first day of notes. Hopefully you were able to follow along. You didn't have too many questions. And if you do find yourself having questions, that's what that next hour that we're about to join in is going to be for. We can ask questions from the notes, we can get clarification on some things, and then we'll actually go ahead and do a couple practice problems together. Okay, so don't feel like you need to be an expert in this quite yet. We will definitely have time to talk about it and go over it, and I will see you guys shortly.